We will start the tour here. It says step number 1. Okay, this is a test that we did our kitchen to do our test for the stoves. And if you will be able to go inside, we did 24 days worth of testing for the damper. The damper is something that we are not using. All the stove manufacturers in Guatemala, they are not using the damper. And one time, sleeping and not sleeping, I reminded that my mother had the damper in her stove. And I said, I didn't see her using it very much. So we needed to know if that was working okay and what and how it works. So we did 0, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90 degrees, and we did 3 tests in every one of those to see how it works better. And now we know that when the people is firing the firewood, it has to be all open. And then 45, the stove performs even a lot better than right now with the damper, without the damper. And when the burn stops, when the firewood stops burning, they can close the damper and they can save more wood because the stove keeps warmer for longer period of time. So this is our stove here, and Lydia does a lot of the testing.
Doesn't Lydia also go out and try to teach the women how to cook on it?
Yes. But we have to reflect something. Like one time we had people doing some tests here, but it was outside. The results were different all the time. And we had to reflect something like the villagers have in the village and do our tests. Any change that we do to the stove, if it's inside or it has to do with the burning of the wood, we run a set of tests to see if we're improving our stove, if it's worth to make the change, or maybe just let it go. You know, sometimes there are good ideas, but not necessarily will do better for our stove.
Have you tested the air coming in, controlling the air coming into the stove?
That's one of the questions that I got when I presented the idea of the damper to the cluster of stoves. And one of the persons said, how about emissions? So we had...
Emission?
Emissions is the gases that, like if the wood is burning and you close the damper, the emissions come back to the kitchen. Is that...
No, the air coming in that supplies the air for the wood to burn.
Uh-huh.
In most wood stoves in the United States, we control the air coming in also with another control.
Yes.
You can't get as much air in.
Our stove has the doors.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
This slide, it works like a damper.
Okay.
we had to do tests for that too because we didn't know how it performed. And we can go to the next station here. In the past, we had a lot of problems with the paint because it will scratch and then the stove will start getting rusted. So right now we are painting every part of the stove with a special paint that can be, I don't know what's the right, fired. And so we have this, this was made here in Barrias. Franklin and some of the guys, and I guided the whole thing, but this was made here in Barrias. And now we're able to fill this with the pieces of the stoves. And then we have a measure here for the degrees. 300 degrees, we take the heat and then we close the door. And the pieces get really, it's not scratch proof, but it's really hard paint.
Yeah.
So we had to do that change.
How many stoves are you making a year?
Right now, up to last year, we were building about 600 to 700 stoves. This year, we just finished last week a production of 471 stoves. Plus some of the stoves that we had 530 stoves. Some of them have gone to the villages, but we have enough stoves right now for the groups that are coming. But if some of an NGO or any organization wants stoves, we can give the stoves we have and we produce more. Right now, our production is probably 100 stoves a month, and my goal is to take to be 1,000 stoves a month. We don't have to do everything. We can subcontract with other people, and we can do the main parts here in Barrias. The thing is, the government has a great plan of building 65,000 stoves a year, given to families, because the need in Guatemala is very big. The thing is, they haven't done very much, but the money will be there sometime, and we want to be ready when they say that they need thousands of stoves. We want to be one of the companies or the organizations that can build a lot of stoves in a month.
Do you have anybody marketing your stoves?
Right now, we are working in the marketing arena. I have a company give us numbers, how much it takes to market our stoves, and that's through the internet, professional written material that we can take to the different organizations. We are working on the business plan that we don't have yet, and this is a process that is taking probably up to June of this year. We should be ready to go with all this, but the marketing and the business plan is something that we are already working on that. Yes. We can go now to the Aller Skill Center.
The skill center that's there today is phase 1. Phase 2 is the extension of that building, doubling the size.
Yes. Oops.
That building comes out, and that building here is just duplicated right here. So you just double the size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I moved to my hometown.
Shed number 1?
Yeah. Yeah. The idea right now is we have to have a lot of inventory here. It's not like in the States that you can call your supplier and bring this much every day because this is how much I will build this day. Coming from Guatemala City, transportation is very expensive. One of the things I try to do is to buy, when I need to buy materials, I buy materials for the whole truck. So it's a little bit less expensive that way. But if we have, every time the Aller Skill Center is getting shorter and shorter because we have a lot of things produced and working. But the idea is in the future, if we need more space, we can build up to this point here, the second phase of the Aller Skill Center. When it's going to happen, we don't know, but we have plans for growth.
We have to get you a new house.
Yeah, I have to find a new place to live, and that's okay.
You need to get away from here.
Okay, these are the operations of the Aller Skill Center. Right now, we are working in 100 stoves. We are measuring the time that it takes to cut all the metal, the times it takes to cut all the angulars and pieces that the stove needs, and we need to know what is our production rate, like a month, how many stoves we can make. So we know that we need to improve some of the machines. I have been looking for a better machine than this, and I have the money for that. I saw one machine in Guatemala City. I told them how much I wanted to pay for it, and they didn't receive the money. And then when I came back a few months later, they have sold it for less money than I offered. I don't know what happened, but I'm still waiting. We don't have companies here that sell a lot of those type of machines, so I'm still waiting for a good machine. It has to be electrical machine or maybe air pneumatic, but this machine we want to use for smaller pieces and have a bigger machine to cut the big pieces. But I know that we need to improve a lot of the machines that we have here to be able to produce 1,000 stoves a year. I mean a month, sorry. But this has been working great. We have been able to produce our stoves that we need, but in order to grow, we have to make changes here. So we need to know where our bottlenecks are and what type of machines will help to deal with those bottlenecks. So these are some of the machines that we use here. Machines like this. This is the machine that helps us to open the holes, like we put the elbow. This is the machine that does the die. I think it's called a die. And some of the machines, we brought some of the machines here, and frankly has been able to reproduce the machines to cut angular pieces, the machines to cut corners and things like that. We are able to produce those machines now here at the Aller Skill Center. This is Julio. This is Julio, and what he's doing is he's working on the metal tops. Right now he's cutting all the metal tops, and then he will do the discs. And he's using a plasma cutter. This is the only plasma cutter here in town. And when people need to do, if somebody needs to do a special work, they come here. We give them a price. If they want us to do the work, we do it for them. So Hands for Peacemaking is serving the community with this machine too, and making a little bit of money too. So this is part of the 100 stoves that we're building.
If you sell stoves, how much would you sell them for?
We are selling the stoves for 1,300 quetzales, which is about $170.
And are you making money doing that?
Yes, we have a little bit of profit, about $30 profit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said 200?
$170. $170 is the price for a stove that we sell here. We can go to the second floor. This is the second floor of the Aller Skill Center. We use this area for working area, but basically it's more for storage. We have the stoves that we need for this year with the teams already built. So we are ready for all the teams that are coming this year. We have some of our older stoves. We put them for sale. We gave a discount. Nobody wants to buy our old stoves. What we are going to do is to make a project in another village with those stoves because nobody wants them.
Why?
It's because the fire chamber is small.
Too small?
This is an idea, the perfect idea from the engineering point of view, because this stove burns less grams of wood per minute. But the villagers, when they get desperate because it's very slow for cooking, they open an open fire and they do their cooking there if they are in a hurry. So this stove really didn't do very good for the people.
Marco, what would it cost to modify that to make the chamber bigger?
There is a piece, a metal piece here that has been welded.
But is there any way to cut it?
Yes, yeah, we could do that.
But maybe we could raise funds for you to modify these so they have a bigger chamber.
Yes, that's a possibility. Right now, it needs a little bit of work to do that. This is the modified fire chamber. A lot of people will think that this take a lot more wood to be able to cook. But what happens is it takes more wood per minute, but it cooks faster. So you don't have to be cooking forever. You boil your pots of water or make your tortillas and you're done. And if the people still have some firewood, they can pull it out and they can put it in ashes or something and use for the next meal. But the test that we have been doing is very efficient, very, very efficient, the stove. Se fue a decirle a aquellos que se callen un ratito. And we have some school desks in the inventory too. And this what you see here, this is not sawdust, but the chips, wood chips. And what we do is to melt wax, candle wax, and put the chips inside, and then it helps for fire starters. And I can show you a box of fire starter here. This has been finished. So
wax in it.
Yeah, it has wax in it, and we have a price for this, and we're still working on the marketing of this. But a bag like this can go for maybe 20 days because they need just a little bit of this as a fire starter. So we have big bags like this, and we have smaller bags. And right now we're in the process of marketing this and talking to the people in the stores, and they have their profit, and they will be able to sell this. We call this ocote. Ocote is it's the wood when they cut the tree and they let it sit, and then it's really it's good for fire starter. I think it's from pine. Mm-hmm. And we call the same so people can relate to the same. It's to start fires. So we have a lot of chips here to work with, and hopefully we'll pick up, and the villagers don't have to cut a lot of trees just to have something to start their fires.
How much does one of these bags cost?
This is 2 quetzales and 50 cents, one of these.
2.5 quetzales.
2.5 quetzales. Right now, people is spending as much as 25 cents to start a fire. And with this, it's about 15 cents. So it's a little bit of savings there.
Yeah.
Save some trees too, yes.
Marco, how many people are employed at the skill center?
When we were building the 471 stoves, we had 14 people, including Franklin and Elvin, that they are full-time employees. So we had 12 people that come and go, depends on the production. Mm-hmm. The need of stoves was very obvious when we visited the villages. And we started working with stoves that are made out of concrete. And every stove weighed 555 pounds with the bricks, with the sand, with the concrete pieces, with everything. And it was hard to transport. But then, you know that cement and heat doesn't do very well. They started cracking, the pieces started cracking, and we had a lot of problems. The company was nice enough to give us replacement pieces to fix those stoves, but we had to go to the village and we had to take the stove apart and put the new piece, and then we had a reincidence. Is that the right word? It breaks again. Yeah. So Pete said, Marco, I think we need to make our own stoves made out of metal. And I resisted a little bit because I thought, well, metal will be a lot more expensive. It will be really hard to do the work and sell to the villagers or even to the groups. And well, we started building our stoves, and that was with the same technology and the same idea of the rocket stove. We do follow-up in the projects that we do, and after a while, the people was cutting with a machete the area of the firebox because they wanted to put more wood, because they needed their meals to be cooked faster. And in order to do that, we had to come up with a new idea, and we widened the firebox, and that's how we have now the other stove. And we stopped producing these type of stoves, but because they are not very efficient. The people, they use it, but they have to be very, very patient, because especially in the back it's a lot slower, because the idea is that the heat going outside of of the stovepipe is going to heat in the back, but it doesn't do a good job in heating in the back. We have found that the greatest need in the villages are water. But sometimes the villagers, like in Canton Las Maravillas, they had a source of water. They just had to walk to the source of water and come back. So after we built the school, we found out that also water was a great need. So the people to survive, they obviously need water. And the thing is, what I see every day here, the people is cutting more and more trees because they need the land to plant their crops, their corn and their beans, and to have their animals. And the children need more land because now they have their family. And I call this the perfect formula for disaster. Because they need the trees, they cut the trees, they need the land, and they need the firewood to cook their meals. But every day there are less and less and less trees. And mudslides, potential for mudslides. The water springs every year have less water. I remember going with one of the board members, Tim Flynn. He works a lot with water in the United States. And we went to measure the springs that supply the water for Barrias. And there were like 4 or 6 4-inch pipes overflow. And 5 years later, they don't have this overflow. It's just the water for Barrias. And maybe in another 5 years, it will be half. And if we don't plant more trees in this area, I know that we will have serious problems with the people, just trying to keep them alive.
So is the root cause of breaking that cycle of disaster water?
I think it's very important to give people water, but if we don't plant more trees, we know that in few years it will be gone.
Is there a movement or an understanding of that?
Not very
It's
much.
the educational part.
It's education, but it's not happening with the government. In our way, when we were coming from Huehuetenango to Barrias, we saw this area from San Mateo. They are cutting lots of trees for firewood.
But if they're also, they're then converting that land because it's needed as farmland. Planting trees they would reject that, I would think, because then you're coming back and you're taking away the cleared land that they need for the crops and things like that. So where do you go? Where do you go to?
Yes, I think it's a matter more of education, because if the villagers know that without trees they won't have water and it's potential for mudslides, I think they can think twice about this and say, okay, I will leave this plot for my garden and I will leave this plot for my corn, but I have to plant trees around and I have to plant as many trees as possible. Like for the coffee, there is a coffee that is called shade-grown coffee, and they have to cut a percentage of wood every year, and they can use that for firewood. They don't have to cut trees, but even producing coffee and the trees that help to produce the shade give them enough firewood to satisfy their cooking needs. There is a lady that we sold one of the newer stoves, and she's so happy because when she has to the family have to do all the cutting the percentage of the trees for the coffee, the shade-grown coffee. Now she have leftover of that wood, and she's able to sell what she's not going to use in the year. And she doesn't have to, they don't have to cut more trees just for the firewood, because the stove is very efficient, doesn't take much wood. So I think it's more a matter of education, like Terry said.
Yeah, sure.
Because if they know that their children or their grandchildren will suffer a lot because they don't have water, then they can start planting more trees. But it's not happening right now. The government is not, they don't have a very strong program where the people have to plant more trees or preventing of cutting trees.
Right.
It's natural for people that don't recognize there's a problem not to see the
Yes, yes.
So,
And I was
once
talking,
they're educated to the problem, then they can begin to think about a solution.
I was at the bank one time and I was talking to a person and I said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I sell firewood. And I was talking to him and trying to tell him that it's a big problem if he's not planting more trees. And if he cuts too many trees, then in a few years, her children will be, well, that one too. But he said, I have to have food on the table today. They don't think very much in the future. Today is what matters. If they have food today, they are happy. So it happens with the corn. If they have corn enough for the year, they're a happy family.
But there is a government program now that's small for trees?
Yes, yeah, there is always programs and they spend a lot of money just in the overhead and very little money to do the real work on the fields.
So it's an incentive for the locals to plant trees?
Yes, yes, yes.
And maintain them?
And maintain them, but it's not happening very much.
Well, but there's many countries that do have programs, notably I think Brazil. They recognize the problem, so.
Yes.
And the United Nations has programs as well, so we need to look into
Well,
that.
and you make a very valid point too, that the tie-in between the trees and the water. They're not separate problems.
No. And this is one of the theories why the Mayan civilization disappeared, is because they cut so many trees and they were not able to survive because a lot of the areas, they didn't have enough water. And that's one of the theories, one of the many. But it can happen. You see some of the communities, you see the houses, and you see that the trees are way up there. But they keep cutting trees. And then this community here, they also are cutting in the other side. And sometimes they will just come and no trees, how are you? And go back to their houses because they have cut all the trees in this mountain. You know, it's a big problem.
So the educational component is always the most important.
Well, you know, the wonderful opportunity there, though, is the education and stuff. But in this climate, trees will regenerate very quickly.
Yes.
You know, you're not looking at a 40-year cycle like you are back where we live and stuff. Right. You know, some here can be a 10 or 15-year cycle, and you know, so it actually shows some fruit.
But even a 10 or 15-year cycle, if the people is not growing trees today, they won't have those trees in 15 years. Yeah, exactly. And that's the big problem, because in 5 years they will have a bigger problem. And waiting 15 years is not going to do anything for them. And water, like we have a big problem now with coffee. There is a sickness that the coffee plants are getting that is called roya in Spanish. I don't know but it's a fungus, and because of the climate change, the leaves get this fungus and the leaves fall. And then the fruit fall. 2 years ago, it was estimated that 60% of the coffee crop that was lost because of the roya. And last year, we had a very long period of time with no rain. So a lot of the crops, the vegetables and crops like that, were lost. So it's if we see this, the problem that we're having right now, we can see that in 5-10 years, it will be even worse if nobody does anything. With the stoves, we have given the families 15 to 20 trees to grow. We have been involved with the municipality and requesting the municipality to give us as hands for peacemaking trees, so we can give to every family that receives a stove, also receives 15 to 20 trees to plant in their area.
You have access to the seedlings?
What I have to propose to the board is that we come up with our own plan, because in the last year or 2 years, the municipality have not doing their part. They say, okay, no more trees. So they are not planting more trees.
But there is access to it. There's a nursery capable of producing seedlings.
The municipality was doing this, and with the prior mayor, we were able to get 20,000 trees a year for the projects that we had. But the mayor this time is not helping very much.